Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Reveal Report, our Friday edition live. We thank you for being here, and we appreciate you guys being patient. A couple of minutes late. We were working on something, and it's going to be a very interesting show. If you're new to us, we thank you for watching and supporting. If you'd like to participate in the chat with this amazing family, we call them a family. A lot of people here are every week and help one another with information. And subscribe. And be a part of the talk, be a part of the chats, and share your thoughts or questions. And if we don't answer it, some of the people in the chat will. They are amazing people from all over the world. We have South Africa, we have Italy, we have China, we have the US, we have Canada, parts of Europe, Germany. Thank you so much for all of you guys supporting us on Telegram, supporting on Twitter, supporting on Instagram, supporting right here on YouTube. And of course, a special thanks to Kristen K, who's a proud supporter of the Reveal Report on Patreon every week, and Lisa M, thank you so much for your amazing support every week. And by the way, I got your message. I haven't got a chance to return it, Lisa, but the message you sent, I have read, and I agree with you. Perfectly said, very poetic, and everything is good when you follow the word of the Lord. So again, thank you to Kristen K and to Lisa M for being proud supporters of the Reveal Report on PayPal every single week. I'll leave the link in the description if you'd like to help support as well. And lots of love going out to everybody. Tonight, we talk about the occult, the supernatural, the esoteric. What specific topic are we getting into? The Rosicrucians. Who are they? Where do they come from? What's the mystery behind them? This, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be an interesting topic because you're going to get three different, and I wouldn't say maybe different, but you're going to get three different styles of research. Gary Wayne, our special guest tonight, author, is going to, talk about some of the stuff he's researched and read about them. Jessie, of course, is going to talk about what she's read and what she's learned from others in regards to these Rosicrucians. I'm going to talk to you about them and their occultic nature because I was fascinated with them. And I don't want to get too much into it right away so we can have an open discussion. First, I'd like to welcome my co-host, who is an author, has many books as well on Amazon. And you could follow her on her website, support the many missions that she's on, of course, and always truthful and trying to be honest with everybody. A great witness to many bad things in this world. So let's bring her out, Miss Jessie Zaboder. Jessie, how are you?
Hey, doing good, George.
Excellent. Thanks for coming to the show. Interesting talk today.
It's going to be amazing.
I'm excited. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the gentleman that you guys just love having this guy on the show.
We love having him on.
Jessie, they don't get enough. He was supposed to be on once a month. It's on 2 times a month. Now, after this, I have to message him. Give me your schedule. I have to book him 6 months in advance. He is incredible. We had him with us for our special tour in Florida, and he brings a lot of insight. Quite the scholar when it comes to biblical texts and other very hidden information. So please welcome with me, Mr. Gary Wayne. Gary!
Hey, good to be back.
Thank you for being here. I love that backdrop of yours. For those who don't know, that is not a green screen. I truly believe those are books that he has read.
I could go up and get one down if I need to prove that they're
reference.
Books.
I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, those books are my reference books that I do my research from. So if I put something in the book, I like to have it. In the second book, I can't get all of the ancient books and stuff because it would bankrupt me. But so I have those all on digital. But for the first book, that's basically the sources.
I love it.
It's awesome.
Guys, we are talking about the Rosicrucians. Who are they? Where do they come from? So much mystery around them. Well, let us begin with a little intro video. We can always talk about it, but I thought this video gave quite a good foundation. Said the right things. Pretty much sums up what, I was going to say in an introduction. So let's play it. Some good work here. It's about a minute or so long. Who are the Rosicrucians? Check it out.
What do the Rosicrucians know? What do they hide? These questions have intrigued humanity for centuries, as the Rosicrucians themselves remain discreet about their teachings, adding to the air of mystery surrounding them. Even the origin of Rosicrucian philosophy is shrouded in mystery. According to some accounts, they would be a secret society founded in ancient Egypt. Their members supposedly preserved esoteric knowledge over the centuries, passing it down through generations. What we do know is that the philosophy of the Rosicrucians is based on the idea of the unity of the universe. They believe that everything is interconnected and that human beings can attain spiritual enlightenment through understanding this unity. This holistic worldview can be intriguing for those seeking a deeper understanding of reality. After all, if everything is connected, then we are part of something greater. Imagine, for a moment, that the reality we perceive is just the tip of the iceberg, and that in the depths of the unknown lie the answers to the most fundamental questions of existence. The Rosicrucians propose that the secret of the universe is not an unattainable mystery, but rather a puzzle for those willing to delve into the deep currents of mystical thought.
Mystical thought. Now, Rosicrucianism has been changed every so forth as we move on in time. It got indoctrinated with the Aleister Crowley thing. It was associated with Kabbalah. A lot of mystery with this, and some of it is based on Egyptian magic and their theories and what they studied. Now, in the modern era age, this was one of the first, not the first, one of the first mystery schools. And it had, at one time, I think only 8 students. And it was, they were looking for the right people to be a part of them. They were doctors, actually. And there were 2 manifestos printed on this. And from my research, and Gary, I don't know if you could shine some light, or Jesse, no one could pinpoint exactly who it is after the research. They've said there's names that have come out, which I could mention, but it hasn't been for certain on the exact person who wrote and released these manifestos. 2 of them, by the way. They are shrouded in mystery. They talk about teaching the hidden knowledge, opening up yourself to the universe. In the second manifesto, discussed, or it's said that he who wrote it talked about speaking to the spirit world. Interesting. Opening themselves up. So let's begin this discussion. First and foremost, Jesse, what do you know, or what have you ever learned about these Rosicrucians?
There is a lot there, especially in the Upper Brotherhood. The Rosicrucians are kind of seen as what we would call kind of like a gateway order that is going to lead individuals up into the highest 3 orders within the system, which are going to be the Golden Dawn, the Order of the Phoenix, and the Order of Melchizedek. So, within that Rosicrucian order, it's based off mysteries, intrigue. Like, they really want to use it to recruit, to draw people in. They want to give people a taste of those mysteries, the powers. When they get into it, they are going to get into the esoteric knowledge, and they're going to study a lot of the deeper Solomonic magic. One of the symbols that they're going to use, which becomes their, they've kind of embraced Solomon's universal key, is what we call it, but that's going to be the rose that represents that universal key. And that universal key is based off of the 7 Holy Spirits of God and God's design in everything, whether it's universal or individual. So, you're going to see a lot of different symbology. They're going to mix a lot of, basic Judaism, Hebrew symbols. So, you're going to have kind of mysteries of the Ark of the Covenant. You're going to have mysteries of the different priests, whether that's the priests out of Israel or what they call the priests, the Egyptian priests that are based off Janus and Jambres, that come out of the days of Moses and Pharaoh when God sent Moses to deliver the people. So you're going to get a lot of Egyptian things. They work around the Egyptian zodiac, and that kind of they'll interface over the Hebrew calendar, and as well as then connect that to the zodiac and different things. So there's a lot of deep knowledge, and I really get into the depths of that in some of my courses that I teach on Kingdom Living with Jesse.com. So
Gary, what can you add? What have you learned and studied about the Rosicrucians?
Oh, it's so complex and
Yes.
so large. And you can go down a lot of different paths. They'll all sort of intersect and come back, but it's a organization that has many, I would say, interpretations, allegories for the name Rosicrucis or Rosicrucian. It takes on different meanings, but there's kind of this Red Cross order that sort of weaves its way through from a night order perspective versus sort of the mystical side of the knowledge. And that's that Red Cross order that goes back through the Templars. It goes back to the Order of the Rose Cross that was restarted with Constantine. It goes back all the way to the Archmasons, back to Solomon and the building of the Solomon Temple, whom Rosicrucians and secret societies would draft Solomon as a black magician. And they weave Egyptian, Hebrew, obviously Essenic and Kabbalism from the Hebrew side into their mix, and other sources as well, but those are the two more common ones. And Solomon is considered a black magician, and he got his wisdom from Egypt. That was brought by Moses. So Moses would be a significant part, depending on what level of the Rosicrucian order that we're talking about. And that Heliopolis is that center for the Egyptian part of the religions, whom the Essenes say they developed their religion from as the true religion that Moses brought back. I don't believe that. That's what their writings talk about. And again, I have a document for that because I know a lot of people sort of buy in that they're the Christians, the early Christians. That's just a Gnostic sort of drafting of it. So we need to understand that aspect of it. We need to understand that Egyptian religion aspect of it, which is as dominant as the mystical Judaic religion or the polytheist religion of Kabbalism and Essene religion. And you also have this ideology of real that's associated with the Rosicrucians, which gets into the genealogies and the history and taking their society back to before the flood and to the genealogy of giants and the fallen angels, whom the knowledge that they hold at the center of these religions are the knowledge of the celestial godfathers, the Watchers. So they sit above Freemasonry. They sit above the Illuminati. They are a gateway to the top three orders, as well as gateways to many other orders that are in and around them. And some of those orders were already mentioned. They were originally sort of formed coming out of the fall of the Knights Templar and answered to the 33 invisible ones. And these are the ones who set up the Jesuits within the Catholic Church, who would answer to them to be the new Templars. So they are an organization that, to me, is that organization where the top half of the Rosicrucians are purebloods and the other ones are less purebloods rising up through the lower organizations.
Very good. Let's get into the rose, create a little information about that which is known, which is the rose and the cross. The Rose Cross, otherwise known as the Rosicrucians, was said to have been created by Christian Rosicrucians, which is actually the so-called name of the founder So it has something to do with his name, or so it is said. The founder of the Rosicrucian, but since we know that this is not 100% true, they can't pinpoint the exact name of the person who founded it. It it's supposedly it's supposed to represent his name, the rose and the cross, but it also has representation of the human body, and the rose is the unfolding of the consciousness of individuals. Interesting. Some say that the rose cross has also come to represent silence and salvation for some people. Others, this is interesting. I found this to be very intriguing. I want to get both your comments on this. They think that the symbol is of human reproduction being elevated to the spiritual, with the rose being the female and the cross being the male. So this is what some people are claiming. Again, it's representation in some sectors. The basis that it was created was based on the name of the person who founded it with the first manifesto. However, in digging deep, that is not confirmed on the actual person and that name. It's very up in the air with many different readings. So the rose, the cross, interesting what they say about it and its meaning. What are your thoughts on that? Let's begin with Jesse.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there. The first thing is that when it's used, it's something that, is kind of meant, or let me maybe start with this, within these orders, their goal is to get people to reflect. They want you to come to that higher knowledge. If you can't look at these things and come to the higher knowledge, then they consider that you're not worthy of it. If you enter into these orders and you're looking at that rose and you're saying, what does that mean? You're going to get questions back. What does it mean? But if you come to that knowledge and you're right, they're going to show you. So some of the things that represents at the higher levels is, we know that that circular imagery represented summoning spaces. We know that King Solomon summoned 72 spirits. All of those can be represented within, um, within that imagery. You also have the rose, which is very similar to a shell shape, which for them represents the spiritual gates, the access points to other dimensions, other realms. As it gets deeper, they'll put different colors within those rose petals. Those colors, represent different light spectrums, meaning that you can access spiritual dimensions above as well as below. So as people begin to study these things, they learn how to, within the Rosicrucian groups, access different dimensions. They're going to learn about sound and vibration, breathing techniques, different things that are going to give them the abilities to, access those dimensional points. But they're also going to connect with different spirits as they learn about those things. A lot of Rosicrucians will consider themselves Christian. They'll classify themselves as Christian. Many of them will be involved in Jesuit Catholic groups where they'll carry their Bibles, their Masonic Bibles, which if you turn into those Bibles at the end, they will show them how to set up summoning spaces and the three great lights and how to, engage in communications with spirits. So, there's a lot there with those roses that we can unpack.
Gary, thoughts on the actual representation of the rose and the cross? What is your studies, or what is your thoughts on this particular logo that represents them?
Another version of that rose is the dog rose. Yeah. And the dog rose is selected for many reasons. One of them is it's related to Lucifer and the orbit of Venus as it travels through the space. So there's a whole bunch of different connections. And when you have that male female that you were talking
Yes.
about, that's always, part of the dualist sort of religion. So in this case, that rose would be almost like an ovum or an ovary, or if you
Correct.
can imagine the
Yeah.
glyph of the female was sort of like a V. And the symbol of the Holy Grail as well as that sort of vessel, and then the cross would be like the spade. In the cards, it would be the male warrior understanding, and so they're bringing that sort of together, and that Lucifer being all source of all knowledge and light, and is sitting above, as that picture is depicted, like Jesus is sitting on the cross, or the serpent is on the cross in the desert in the book of Numbers, with a seraphim up top, and again imagery that sort of relates into there as well. So when I look at the meanings of the rose, I mean, it just goes back right into, like the rose of the valley and all sorts of stories and mythology that sort of goes along with it. But again, it sort of is more part of that bloodline back to prehistory that is connected through these Masonic orders of royal bloodlines that are populating these top orders. So, an example, and you were talking about, the creation of the Rosicrucian in the modern age, after the fall of the Templars, and they're a replacement order for the fall of the Templars until they form a few more orders. But you have like the Rosy Cross order that is formed by Robert the Bruce
in 1400, I think it was.
Yeah, before that.
Yeah.
More like about 1323. And the 33 invisible ones that they answer to were the ones that were trying to reestablish the Knights Templar back into the Catholic Church, but went underground afterwards. And so you even have, I would say, this forming of this order even before that. So when the manifestos are talked about, they are later dated than that, and the originals one sort of published posthumously by a couple of I guess printers, and all of them are Rosicrucians that are part of this, and it's sort of developing a mythos, and that the original order at that time were understood as the invisible ones, and they didn't like to be seen, although they do become a little bit more visible as time goes on. But they called themselves the College of the Invisible Ones, and again, sort of representing some of that knowledge that goes back into prehistory. So you can get caught up in all of the allegories and the mythos of them.
Yes,
and be there forever with all the different meanings, because that's what they do.
Yeah, and I think
they've had thousands of years to do it.
I think that's part of it too. It's part of that. They wanted that. In looking and researching about their manifestos, I found that the second one was interesting because it was all based on imagery. They specifically like icons and logos and representation. That was part of their mysticism. Everything represents something. So they are all about symbols and symbolism. And it goes into the communication of spirits and oneself, opening up its consciousness to understand the universe. Very similar to the Kabbalah type ordeal. And this is, again, for the second manifesto, which, like I said, and Gary was reaffirming, we don't know exactly who released that. It's a couple, of course, they were Rosicrucians, but I just find it interesting when we think about logos, symbols, and so forth, how that second manifesto specifically talks about it representing them. It also goes back to a specifically very Egyptian things, because you could find museums, Rosicrucian museums, in association with Egyptian magic and its history, and their mystic schools. It's very intertwined with a whole lot of things. And if you're asking yourself, how do I get indoctrinated? How do I get initiated? I'd like to be.
Don't do it.
Well, they want to know. So I'm going to play a video that gives you the I'm going to give away the secret, Jesse. Gary, I'm going to give away the secret how you could be initiated to be a Rosicrucian. I'm going to play the video. I want you to listen carefully. The secret is here. So I'm going to play it for everybody. Turn up the volume. Take a listen. This is how you could be initiated and become a Rosicrucian. Take a listen.
Initiation into the Rosicrucian order is not a matter of mere curiosity or ambition. It is a profound spiritual commitment that requires a certain level of spiritual unfoldment. But what does this mean? Spiritual unfoldment refers to the process of inner growth and awakening, the blossoming of the spiritual potential that lies within each one of us. It represents the journey of the soul toward greater wisdom, love, and understanding. The Rosicrucian order, like other mystery schools, recognizes that not everyone is at the same stage on this journey. Each soul is on its unique path, and the pace of spiritual unfoldment varies from person to person. Therefore, the order opens its doors only to those who have reached a stage of spiritual development where they are ready to receive and comprehend its teachings. This does not mean that the Rosicrucian teachings are elitist or exclusive. On the contrary, they affirm the universal potential for spiritual growth within all of us. However, they also acknowledge that the deeper mysteries of life and being, which the order imparts, can be understood and applied effectively only when the individual is spiritually prepared. So, how does one prepare for Rosicrucian initiation? The process is not about accumulating intellectual knowledge or performing certain rituals. The end goal is inner transformation. It involves cultivating virtues such as wisdom, compassion, and humility, expanding one's consciousness, and developing the capacity to perceive and work with spiritual realities. Eligibility for Rosicrucian initiation is about the readiness of the soul. And the soul is ready when one is prepared to delve deeper into the mysteries of existence and take on the responsibilities that come with such knowledge.
Listen to that carefully. Anyone who studied the occult, who studies mystery schools and secret societies, I mean, everything. This is very similar to Kabbalah, very, very similar to the Kabbalah in some ways. You have to be at a certain place in your life, and not everyone is in that place. Interesting. In order to accept and be ready for these spiritual I guess, journey. But I think what they're referring to, because it said in the second manifesto, you must be open spiritually in communicating with these spiritual beings. Who are they talking about when they say this? What are they referring to? I want to know. Jesse, are they talking about angels? Are they talking about demons? Gary's going to
They're talking about the fallen, the 72.
Are they talking about the giants, the Nephilim? Let's get into it. Let's touch on this briefly. What are they referring to?
Yeah, I mean, I personally think they're talking about, the fallen and the 72 spirits that Solomon connected to that are found in, his grimoires. And, what does that tell us then? If they're connecting to those spirits, what are some of the books that they're studying? They're going to go straight to those keys of Solomon.
And it's interesting here, Gary, before we throw it to you, this is an amazing question here. Are they men only? Now, to my understanding that I've seen, and everything I read and I'm looking, I've never seen any women involved in this group of individuals.
They're there, George. They're just hidden.
I guess they're just hidden in a different sector under a different name. I'm assuming that's what it is. But how interesting is it, again, to show you guys, again, about these secret societies, these groups, that it's all made up, these individual groups, whether it's the Masons and whether it's the Rosicrucians and so forth. I mean, we could go through them all. It's a lot of them is the male dominance. It's the power of the alpha male. And then the female, the feminine, they have a different order, or they have their own sector or their own group. So I find that interesting. And the more you study that in the occult, it's quite fascinating when it comes to this type of stuff. And this is crazy. So again, like this person said, Caleb, the Sisters of Astaroth. You see, that's one group for the women. Then there's an actual sector for Masons for the women. There's another group. There's the Mothers of Darkness.
Yeah,
the
I mean, there's so many. You've got all the priestesses. You've got the priestesses of Delphi, the priestesses of Melissa. You've got the Seraphaical priestesses, which those are going to be ones just in the temple. You've got the Daughters of the Nile are going to be more connected, to the Rosicrucian, the Masonic orders. Those are going to fall under the Eastern Stars.
Okay.
And then you're going to have their junior orders, their elementary orders, which are going to be the Rainbow Girls, the Daughters of Rebecca, the Daughters of Sarah. You're going to have a whole bunch of female groups mixed in there.
So they're there, but I just find it interesting that they have their own style and their own rituals and their own ways. I think the only, guys, we're just digging into this, a conversation right now between all three of us. The only place I've seen male and female together would be I'm going to say it, a satanic ritual is really where they will mix male and female. And Jesse, you have to correct me because I don't know for sure, but I believe it would be a warlock. I think it's between 1 and 5 at one time in the world that are the highest of the high that would be in charge of this satanic thing, the group, whatever you want to call it. There's millions, by the way. And again, it doesn't mix. Why is that? Let's ask that question. Why do they not mix? If, in all magic, you have the feminine and the masculine, but it's separated when it comes to ritual and groups. Let's get this out in the open because I'm curious. Why is that?
Because really, in reality, it's not based on male and female. It's based on, individual soul resonance. And, where does that soul resonate? Who can do fire magic? Who can do water magic? You have to have opposites in order to get energy going. So it just depends on, who can connect in the spirit world together. And whoever that is, they'll engage in the sexual ritual magic together.
Jeez.
Once they get the energy going. So it doesn't, it's not really based on per se male and female.
Now, someone said here, Dana said, the Order of the Golden Dawn had males and females together. That was later, by the way, because
I think a lot of them do the upper. So, the Golden Dawn, the Order of the Phoenix, and the Order of Melchizedek, you will have male and female in both, in all rituals and ritual prep,
the
and
highest
in circles.
Level. The highest level.
The highest levels you have both in both circles.
Got you. So I guess they would process, see who the best of the best is, and then bring them together. I know when I told you about that mystery school that I was looking into when I was, a student of the occult, it was the Order Temple Orialis, and it was I saw a male and female there, and it wasn't just male, but it was male and female. And I found that to be interesting. Again, an Aleister Crowley thing where he took the Golden Dawn and did his thing with that. This is incredible stuff. And again, the Rosicrucians is just one particular topic we chose today. But look how many that me and Jesse have talked about. And of course, Gary, how many groups in 3-4 minutes that she mentioned, just women. Not even guys alone. We could do a show just on different groups. We should do a show on the women groups.
We
should do a show just on the women groups and the secret societies of women. That should be a show in itself. I love it. Gary, some context. Talk to us. What do you got for us?
Yeah. So the first thing to remember is that, and I know you guys know this, but for the audience, is that the higher you go, the more the female becomes more important. And even up to the level of the Queen of Heaven, right? It becomes more important. So it's at the lower level that you don't see as much, but as you've noted, there's definitely female organizations and some representation there. So when you first started after the video, you were talking about the who are the invisible ones, and
yes,
so separate that into two groups: the visible ones and the invisible ones. So the visible ones, who call themselves invisible ones, are the higher part of the organization, and the original invisible ones, who formed the lower groups after the fall of the Knights Templars, and they work in the background and they pull the strings and they like to stay invisible. They're also part of the ones, along with the Freemasons, to create the Invisible College. And that's that invisible college of the Brother of the Rosy Cross, of 36 of them, as I recall the number was. And so they like to stay in behind, and they're supplying those colleges with their knowledge, which is why the Royal Society, the Invisible College, was the start of science and education outside the Catholic Church to be able to control that. And all of the organizations answer to them to this day. And they called themselves the last of the sorcerers and the first of the scientists. And sorcery is a big part of alchemy, which is another big part to the Rosicrucian story as well. I'm not going down that rabbit hole right now. I want to get back to the invisible ones. And so the ones that they're talking to are the celestial white masters, the white brotherhood. And of course, those are organizations that are also understood on Earth, as you go back to Heliopolis and to Nimrod, as forming the original post-Diluvian organizations on Earth, as being divine demigod representatives of the invisible ones. And biblically, we're told who the invisible ones are. We fight both those flesh and that aren't flesh, and those are visible, and those are who are invisible. So we know exactly who the invisible ones are that they answer to. And this organization that has all of this, because it's almost like a conflation religion. It's like the source for Gnosticism, or the Gnosticism is the source as it became the collection of all the religions of the world. So you're going to see Indian representation in there, as in the subcontinent of India with Hinduism and Buddhism. It's becomes a significant part of it. So when we're talking about this group, it just, as I say, it's unbelievable how many arms that it has, or how many branches that it has, and where they fit on the tree. And it's interesting, again, as you talk about that female aspect, that becomes more important in the Rosicrucian order, because now you're moving up the thelemic tree.
yes.
And I also wanted to, so for people who are wanting to know who was the main publisher of the manifestos, that was John Valentin Andrea. So about 1600s when he published it. And the story of Rosicrucians is said to go back into about the 1300s, right? So again, at the time of those invisible ones, after the fall of the Knights Templar, when they're trying to reestablish within the church, that's all part of that same time period. But that's just the modern representation of this organization that they say goes back before the flood, and right back to Cain, and part,
Back to Cain.
back to Cain and Enoch, who started the religion and the original mystical knowledge that formed Enochian mysticism, that crossed the flood, that begat the Egyptian religion, begat the Mesopotamian religion.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah.
So I want to touch on something that a person made in the comment section. And I just corrected him, but I wanted to be clear with everybody, because this is very key information. I don't want anyone to have half truths and half lies. We have to be all telling what is really happening. Greg was talking about how Crawley, started the what was it? Not the temple, the Golden Dawn. That's not true. Let me be very specific. That is absolutely not true. Crawley was initiated into the Order of the Golden Dawn on the 18th of November, 1898 by its group's leader, Samuel. He later wanted to challenge Samuel, showed up, is the story that I was told, showed up to London, England, to where it was on a second floor to get into a fight. He wanted to fight him because he wanted to be headmaster, he wanted the books, he wanted the information, and that wouldn't come to be. He also did not start the Order Temple Ordeus. He didn't start that. That wasn't his start. That was not him who started it. It was a ritual magical organization founded in Germany in 1904. The order found its inspiration in the medieval Knights Templar, who were suppressed through the most of Europe in the 14th century. Now, Crawley, what he did create was his own style of magic called Thelema. So he didn't start that temple. That was before him. He was a member. He
drew that from Gargantua.
Thank you. Exactly. I believe, and let me get this correct. I believe in England he emerged from his own order, and I think it was the Astrum Argentinium, I believe was the name of his own order. I just want to be clear, so we all know what's going on here. He was a guy who wanted to be the head of those two, but what he actually took was, he was like a chaos magician. He took a little bit of everything, created his own thing, wrote a bunch of books, but Thelema magic was him. The other mystery schools were ones that he belonged to or wanted to be a part of. I believe, if I was correct, he was thrown out of the first one, which is the Order of the Golden Dawn. But that was the first prestigious one that he was a part of in London, England, which still exists today. Anyways, I hope that clarifies. We could go in many different directions, but we want to make sure that the information is correct in these mystery schools. Let's get into it. When you discussed and you talked about I'm getting the word in my mouth here, alchemy. It's important that we get into that because that was also part of their manifesto for the Rosicrucians. Alchemy is something they studied. So what is alchemy? Gary, would you like to give a synopsis? What is alchemy?
It is the black magic of Egypt from Chemi, and it is related to the knowledge of Azazel, who is the Capricorn of, I've got the name wrong, it's not Chemis, it's very close to that. But anyways, this is that ancient knowledge that is being passed down and that they're developing. And so the Rosicrucians in the alchemy, that's their main part of the development of the 7 sacred sciences. And that they also developed the philosophical aspect of the 7 sciences that guides all of the 7 sciences, that sort of merges with this alchemy knowledge of that forms into what they call the absolute, that has the ability to absolutely destroy the whole world. So yeah, it's the black mallet, it's the black magic of the priests that they were practicing, that Moses ran up against. It's the magic and knowledge at Heliopolis. It's the magic of the Magi, because of course that comes over with Hermes and Mizraim after Babel, with all of the knowledge that was at Nimrod. This is the black magic of Atlantis, and it is, as I say, it's the aspect of the chemistry that is being developed in their particular trunk order, and all of the main orders have disciplines of the sciences that they specialize in.
Very good. So there you go, alchemy. That's the basis premise of it. People wanted to take this because they wanted to create gold. Now, Jesse will talk about briefly a form of alchemy when it comes to diamonds. This exists, folks. And for those that are weak of heart, that don't want to hear, you know, I'm going to let you know now. I'm going to let her touch on that. But that's a form of alchemy. Alchemy is a way to take something and turn it into something valuable, to give them power. They've always been into alchemy. They always wanted gold. That has always been their field, is gold, precious metals. Jesse will touch on that briefly. And there was a famous magician that was contracted by the Queen. His name was John Dee. But before I get into him, and I know, Gary, you know something about John Dee. Before we talk about him, let's let Jesse explain something about alchemy where some of these occultists practice. Now, this is going to be startling to some of you. So I'll prepare you right now. Jesse, would you like to touch on what I'm referring to?
Yeah, at the highest levels of this, you know, that what is the alchemy about? It's about what they consider white gold, and that's, you know, for them, it's reaching that eternal or immortal state. And how do they attempt to do that? Really, at the highest levels, they're engaging in different forms of blood magic and learning how to transform the white and the red blood cells within the blood into diamonds. You know, why do they need to do that? Well, you know, diamonds reflect light at different fractions, different spectrums. So, you know, their belief is that as they reach that higher enlightened state, that, you know, when they can do that, they in fact themselves believe that they become gods, or, you know, or like God, as Lucifer proclaims. So, you know, they're initiates of the flame, and you know that's what they work on, is transforming their bodies into living fire. That diamond is going to reflect the light off of and reflect their soul fire. So that's probably the simplest form we can go with that. But you know, in that, sometimes they have to fake it till they make it. um, you know, that's where they get into, you know, engaging in dimensional and sexual magic. You know, there are things where they will incinerate expendable children, and they will transform their bodies into diamonds and use those diamonds in sexual magic.
It's quite disgusting.
Yeah.
It is quite disgusting. It's a form of alchemy. And of course, you know, when we're referring to John Dee, who, by the way, guys, if you didn't know, he had a code name with the Queen. And did you know that his code name
007.
007? So if you're wondering where that came from, that's John Dee. And John Dee had a form of magic. He had a partner he was working with and working on magic. And that's where Enochian magic derives from. Enochian magic comes from John Dee. And he would do something called scrying. Supposedly, he thought he was communicating with angels, if you believe that. He thought he was communicating with angels. Long story short, from my studies, he's never turned any brick or stone or rocks into gold. But he did do writing on Enochian magic and discussed his way of talking to them and words and so forth. By the way, I've had many occultists in discussions about Enochian magic. That is some of the craziest stuff in the history of the planet. Anyone should be no part of any type of magic whatsoever at all, especially Enochian magic. I know people that just went absolutely bananas with Enochian magic. Stay away from this stuff. It is dangerous. Gary, some context.
Yeah, so the word I was struggling with is the chem of Mendes, and Azazel is the chem and the goat of Mendes. That's where that black magic comes from. The turning material into gold is very much part of the whole alchemy aspect, even though it's got a whole bunch of other different avenues as well. And I think one of the things, they're not trying to form gold to become rich. They have lots of money and power already. I think it has something to do with that godhood thing that Jesse was talking about with the diamonds, and in this aspect as well, and the jewels, just as Lucifer has the 9 jewels, right, and is the source of all the light and the wisdom, and but you also have the golden fleece that's talked about in Greek mythology, and this was the clothing of the gods that would permit their bodies not to decay. You know, the golden fleece is the lamb that's represented on the order of the Anjou and the order of the golden fleece as you get back up into the higher ends of the Masonic orders. So just wanted to throw that out, that gold has a lot of meaning for them, and it was also used for a lot of the technology. And that's why it's part of all of the thrones and all of the things that the knowledge would be developed. It's essential, and they need more of it. And they need those crystals and those stones that work hand in hand for that knowledge. And knowledge and immortality, they're all sort of interwedded. The things you have to have is unlimited knowledge and immortality, so that becomes part of it. So John D, I'm trying to catch up to the conversation. John D, I mean, he was the most notorious sorcerer, Rosicrucian of his time, and he was a counselor to Queen Elizabeth and mentor of Francis Bacon, who becomes the mentor and second most powerful person to Queen Elizabeth and then King James. And it's Francis Bacon, the one trained by John Dee, who's going to write the New Atlantis, where this Enochian magic and thing was all developed, in the 10 kings of the antediluvian world that's trying to create this universal religion that works in harmony with science and has these 10 kings ruling over it for the end time. That's the millennium that they're trying to bring about. He's the one who is the inspirational founder for the Invisible College, the Royal Society. His picture hand is one of 3 that hangs in the entrance to the society, and it's the New Atlantis, and his alchemy writings and literature that is the basis for bringing about the Royal Society. And it all sort of goes back to John Dee, to Francis Bacon, and all of these other writers who are heavily involved in developing the Rosicrucian order throughout the Middle Ages, that develops the lower orders of the Rosicrucians. So as you see, like in the Priory of Sion, you see a transition from royal bloodlines to scientists. They're still nobles, but they're lower bloodlines. And that's that lower level of that Rosicrucian order starting to appear. In 1623 was the first visible appearance of the Rosicrucians, even though we have historical records, and they called themselves the College of the Brother of the Rosy Cross, and there was 36 members at that time to form that order.
It's unbelievable. I mean, like I said, they say that its origins are Egyptian, is what they say. It's the 2 manifestos that came out, cannot be confirmed on who wrote them. We're letting you know that right now. They love symbols, is what the second one discussed. And it's very esoteric. It's a mystery school that is said. You don't have to be an elitist to participate, but you must be open spiritually to communicate with these spiritual gates, realms, people, whatever they say. Yeah. However, it was said that they wanted you to communicate, or wanted to communicate with spiritual beings. And when you were ready, consciously, you would receive information from the universe.
Yeah, from the avatars.
There you go.
That's what they called them.
Is there truth to this in any way, shape, or form? Is it possible? Well, in the occult world, I mean, that's what it's known for. The whole reason, usually, in ritual magic, especially when you're talking Enochian magic or Solomonic magic, is you're trying to communicate with a higher being, with an entity, to retrieve information that no other human has. Yes, that is the basis of, this type of style of magic. So Rosicrucianism, in a sense, is a mysterious magical style, a technique to communicate with these spiritual beings. Just as you said, it may take a little bit from Solomonic magic. It might be Enochian. Who knows how many things they stole? It could be Egyptian, because they said its roots goes to Egyptian. Either way, folks, we're painting it down on the ground. We're letting you know, in the end, they said it themselves in just so many words. They communicate with the other side, and that is magic. The mystery schools are teaching you mysteries, not about secrets that'll better your life, like what it teaches in the Bible, but instead how to communicate with spiritual beings, entities, avatars, angels, demons, parasites, whatever you want to call these things, on receiving information, unlocking the keys to the universe. And the only, truthfully, and I have to say this, and you guys could comment, the only true power, magic, is your faith in the Lord, in God Almighty. That's it. The only you want a real book? You want a book that has all the secrets? You want a book that has true power? You want a book that has true, unbelievable ability? I'm going to share, guys, I'm giving this away for free. This information, I'm not charging for it. It's free. Here it is, guys. You ready? That's the book. That is the book that'll give you all the information, all the knowledge, how to better your life, unlocking the secrets of the universe. And the secrets to the universe is being a good human being, forgiving, not being malicious, not being evil, not doing bad things, to turn the cheek, to forgive, to try and do better. And if you fall down, you get back up. You do better your second time around. It's not a mystery school. You don't have to be special. You don't have to be an elitist. Jesse, I'm quite certain you could be any age whatsoever to join this special group. And it is elite. Believe it or not, this is an elite group of individuals. And there's billions around the world.
Well, and so much power and authority, George.
And
I'm going to give, I'll give the secret away too.
You're going to give it away? Okay, give me your secret.
I am, for free.
Yes.
If you want to know you can have the fullness of all power, all authority. You can start with a simple passage out of Isaiah 9, and it says, "Unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government rests on his shoulders." And when we look at that government and we look at the power of the Holy Spirit that rests on him, go back and research that word rest. Did you know, George, that word rest actually goes straight back to the story of Noah, that Noah's name, Noach, literally means rest.
Wow.
And think about the Holy Spirit, the dove in that story, and looking for a place to rest. And it brings us right back to just being one of those mysteries about, who is God, who is his Holy Spirit, where is his power found? And we find it only in him and only in relationship with him. So I agree, there is no greater power than that word of God. And all you need to know is there in that simple book.
And
the
guys,
66 books in that Bible.
Let me tell you, we talked about the Rosicrucians, who they are, the mystery school, its teaching, its background. It all has to do with mysticism, magic, and communicating with the spiritual realm. Very Kabbalah, very stylish like Kabbalah. And they love symbolism. So if you ever thought, wow, there's so many symbols and so many other secret societies, a lot of it came from that second doctrine that was released. These guys are a secret society. And they like mystery. And if you want to be a part of them, I don't know why you would. You'd have to learn these things to communicate with the other side. And all you really need to do is just get on your knees or stand up, go for a walk, look up high. Here's the occult. Occult means hidden knowledge. And I'm going to release it to you right now. Just talk to God. If you have a problem and you need a solution, you need information, you want consultation, refer to the Lord. Come to him, ask him. If you need help, if there's something going on, fast. Stop doing what you're doing. Take something away. Make changes in your life. Pray. Have a relationship with God, and great things will happen. That is the true mystery. That is the true elite group. And there's billions around the world. And I'll even tell you what they're referred to. Are you ready, Jesse? Gary, are you ready? They're referred to as brothers and sisters. You don't need to be just male. There was a reason why I talked about that early in the show. That was my segue. You don't have to be male or female to be a part of this special group. And it is special because God is everywhere, not in brick and mortar in a particular house or a particular school or a particular ideology. God is God. He is great in all things. So guys, I hope that helps shine some light and reveal a few things about the Rosicrucians. God is good.